Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment of the podcast is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. For over 50 years, the Great Heritage Foundation has been America's outpost in Washington, fighting against the D.C. federal bureaucracy and working to secure a future that allows Americans to live the good life. For too long, common sense principles have been ignored by many of the very leaders claiming to fight for America. But the Heritage Foundation is proud to hold our leaders accountable and stand up for America's founding principles. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You're listening to Radio Free America, where the truth shall set you free. You know, I found online a great short clip from Clarence Thomas that was put there by the great Ted Cruz. And this is it's just a very short clip from 2007. And in times like this, when people are trying to sort out truth from fiction and facts from propaganda, you need to have the courage to stand up and speak for yourself. Now, it's not hard for me. I've got multiple platforms with multi-millions of listeners. Marjorie Taylor Greene is demanding that Fox fire me today. She better hope that they don't. And, of course, they won't. The whole world knows she's a fool and a buffoon. She's the one who famously said, Iran never killed an American. She should be walking around with a bag over her head, for a lot of reasons, but that one in particular. And so I've anointed her the dumbest person in the House of Representatives. And that, let me tell you something, that's an achievement. It's a big achievement. Here's what Clarence Thomas said at the Heritage Foundation in 2007. Words to the wise. Cut one, go.
You can be in the middle of a hurricane, or you can be on a calm day. North is still north. You could be in a thunderstorm. North is still north. People can yell at you. North is still north. It doesn't change fundamental things. And in this business, right is still right, even if you stand by yourself.
Never forget that. It's very, very important. Right is still right, even if you stand by yourself. Right is still right. Of course, I stand with millions and millions of you. I want to talk about what happened today relating to when the president went to the helicopter. I want to talk about the ceasefire and things of that sort. But first, it's very important that we understand our history, even recent history, because we don't learn from it. It's very important that we understand who the fraudsters are, who the grifters are. It's very important because at a time like this, when we are literally facing enemy within, enemy without, whether they be Islamist terrorists, whether they be Islamist terrorist groups or states, whether they be Marxist countries like North Korea and China, whether they be fascist regimes like Russia under the former colonel of the KGB, Putin. The isolationists either outright support these entities or they give them aid and comfort. These are very dangerous times. And with the new media, it doesn't take much for basically anybody to have a platform and to give aid and comfort to the enemy. I never want you to forget that when Donald Trump was contemplating what to do about these nuclear sites, he came under brutal attack by the isolationists, by Chatsworth Qatarlson, by Bannon, a fraudster, by Marjorie Taylor Greene, a buffoon, and many others. They attacked President Trump, even though they have grifted off of him. Even though Bannon got a pardon from him. That wasn't good enough for Bannon. Even though Chatsworth Qatarlson has had to apologize to our president repeatedly. Because the trust fund baby prep boy really is a strange dude. And it goes on. So we're going to put this in context. Because again, it's important. At a time like this, when we're facing enemies, foreign and domestic, that we know who stands with you, we the people, the American people, and it sure as hell ain't them. When 80% or more of the American people wanted something done about those nuclear sites, and Donald Trump did it, for which he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. Here's a post. Mark Levin was at the White House today lobbying for war with Iran. To be clear, Levin has no plans to fight in this or any other war. He's demanding that American troops do it. Of course, none of that is true. None of it. We need to stop Iran from building nuclear weapons, he and like-minded ideologues in Washington are now arguing. They're just weeks away. If this sounds familiar, it's because the same people have been making the same claims since at least the 1990s. It's a lie. In fact, there's zero credible intelligence that suggests Iran is anywhere near building a bomb, or has plans to. None. Anyone who claims otherwise is ignorant or dishonest. All right. President, Vice President, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the CIA Director, but let's put them aside for now. If the U.S. government knew Iran was weeks from possessing a nuclear weapon, we'd be at war already. Iran knows this, which is why they aren't building one. You see what I mean? This guy's Tokyo Rose in many ways, except Tokyo Rose actually was part of the enemy in Japan. Zohran Qatarlson, he's right here in the United States, in a hovel in Maine or some other place, hiding out. Iran knows this, which is why they're not building one. Iran also knows it's unwise to give up its weapons program entirely. Now, look, I'm not going to explain again and again the incoherence of this. So it doesn't have one, but it knows why it's unwise to give one up. This is what I mean. It must have been late at night, happy hour. Muammar Gaddafi tried that and wound up sodomized with a bayonet. As soon as Gaddafi disarmed, NATO killed him. NATO never killed him. Many years later, his people killed him. This is what I mean, the hate America first crowd. Iran's leaders saw that happen. They learned the obvious lesson. So why is Mark Levin once again hyperventilating about weapons of mass destruction? I'm not hyperventilating about anything. Taking the evidence that's presented by our government, the Trump administration, to distract you from the real goal, which is regime change, young Americans heading back to the Middle East to topple yet another government. Virtually no one will say this out loud. America's record of overthrowing foreign leaders. Okay, nobody said it out loud because it's a lie. I can't even count the number of lies I just mentioned in the first three paragraphs. This is important. Accountability is important. Virtually no one will say this out loud. America's record of overthrowing foreign leaders is so embarrassingly counterproductive that regime change has become a synonym for disaster. I thought we sent bombers over there, Mr. Producer, to knock out their nuclear sites. Did we send any troops? Officially, no one supports it, so instead of telling the truth about their motives, they manufacture hysteria. Quote, a country like Iran can never have the bomb. They'll nuke Los Angeles. We have to act now. There's a very serious problem with these sites. Nobody's denied it except the isolationists. These are damnable, dangerous people. They don't really mean this, and you can tell they don't by what they omit. At least two of Iran's neighbors, both Islamic nations, already have nuclear weapons. Now, I looked on a map. I see Pakistan. They have a nuclear weapon. Then there's Afghanistan. They don't. So I don't know what he's talking about. But they get in Qatarlson. That fact should scare the hell out of Mark. Now, keep in mind, I never mentioned this clown. That fact should scare the hell out of Mark Levin, yet for some reason he never mentions it. How come? Well, let's see. Has Pakistan threatened to blow us off the face of the earth? Is Pakistan not an ally, even an uncomfortable one? This guy is a lunatic because it's not the weapons he hates. It's the ideology of the Iranian government. That's true. I do hate that. The Islamist ideology is the jihadis is horrible, but apparently Tucker does not. That's key. It goes without saying that there are very few Trump voters who'd support a regime change war in Iran. Donald Trump has argued loudly against reckless lunacy like this. Well, where is this coming from? Since he doesn't know what I discussed with Donald Trump. He got a leak. And I know where it came from, but I'm going to help protect his sorry ass. Trump ran for president as a peace candidate. A peace candidate, not a death candidate. Peace does not mean never using military action. That's what made him different from conventional Republicans. It's why he won. Actually, he won more over immigration, but dim-wittedness is not something that Tucker can escape. A war with Iran would amount to a profound betrayal of his supporters. It would end his presidency. That may explain why so many of Trump's enemies are advocating for it. It would end his presidency? A war with Iran? What war? End his presidency? It was backed by 80% of Republicans. Then there's the question of war itself. Iran may not have nukes, but it has a fearsome arsenal of ballistic missiles, many of which are aimed at U.S. military installations in the Gulf, as well as our allies and at critical energy infrastructure. I don't believe they fired a single one outside of Israel. Did they, Mr. Producer? Listen to this. The first week of a war with Iran could easily kill thousands of Americans. It could also collapse our economy. As surging oil prices trigger unimaginable inflation, consider the effects of $30 gasoline. Oil prices went down. But the second week of the war could be even worse. Iran isn't Iraq or Libya or even North Korea. While it's often described as a rogue state, Iran has powerful allies. It's now part of a global bloc called BRICS. That's an economic association, moron, which represents the majority of the world's landmass, population, economy. Brazil and India, among other countries, belong to it. Iran has extensive military ties with Russia. It sells the overwhelming majority of its oil exports to China. Iran isn't alone. An attack on Iran could very easily become a world war, and we'd lose. What do you think, folks? None of these are far-fetched predictions, says Qatarlson. Most of them comport with the Pentagon's own estimates. No, they don't. Many Americans would die during a war with Iran. People like Mark don't seem to care about this. It's not relevant to them. Instead, they insist that Iran give up all uranium enrichment, regardless of its purpose. This guy is really bad news. What was its purpose in those mountains that required our bunker buster bombs? What were the purpose? To put the lights on in Iran? That's what he wanted you to believe. They know perfectly well that Iran will never accept that demand. They'll fight first, and of course, that's the whole point of pushing for it, to box the Trump administration into a regime change in Iran. Well, it doesn't seem to work, does it, Mr. Producer? The only two people talking about regime change were him and the president recently, and he's dismissed it. One thing that people like Mark Levin don't want is a peaceful solution to the problem of Iran, despite the obvious benefits to the United States. They denounce anyone who advocates for a deal as a traitor and a bigot. They'll tell us with a straight face that Long Island native Steve Witkoff is a secret tool of Islamic monarchies. Nobody has said that. They'll say or do whatever it takes. They have no limits. These are scary people. Pray that Donald Trump ignores them. Now, here's a man that has not only no judgment, no context, no circumspection. He's a nut. Every single thing he said there is a lie. Every single one. Every single one. So why did he say it? He put it out publicly. Why did he say it? Here's the National Security Journal. Complicit in war, Tucker Carlson blasts Trump over Iran attack. Tucker Carlson has publicly blasted President Trump over Israel's recent air assault on Iran, accusing Trump of being complicit in the act of war, quote-unquote, due to longstanding U.S. military support for Israel. He also said we should drop Israel, of course. That's why I call him Qatarlson. In his June 13th newsletter, Carlson argued that America First politicians cannot disavow involvement in the attack. Trump, in a subsequent interview with The Atlantic, dismissed Carlson's criticisms, asserting his ownership of the America First slogan and arguing that you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. And it goes on. Tucker Carlson versus Donald Trump. Tucker Carlson has a long, vile, vicious history of trashing Donald Trump. I'm going to read you one letter when we return. Then I want to get on about ceasefires, what's going on today, Iran breaking the ceasefire, Iran asserting that they're going to continue with their nuclear program, the president saying no, they're not, and the whole mindset of the Islamist world. We have some great guests as well. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
President Trump is in Washington with a mandate from the American people to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Bidenflation, and restore American greatness. But since January 20, judges across our country have consistently been blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been analyzing the situation, and they've been able to identify the legal issues with these judges' actions, as well as the solutions that can end this potential crisis. Now, to see the results of the Heritage's analysis for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. There you'll gain exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of limiting President Trump's executive actions. Stopping these judges might be the only way to protect Americans and take back our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, that's heritage.org/Levin, and get your free copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. So we're going to continue to make sure the truth is out there. It's very, very important. We're going to continue to make sure you know who to hold accountable for their lies and deceit. Somebody sent me online here, Mr. Producer, did you see the Tehran Times? Now, apparently the Tehran Times, as I understand it, is the official English language media propaganda operation for the Islamic Revolution in Tehran. And they embraced, supported, reported every word that I just read to you from Chatsworth Qatarlson and spread it around the world. Because he gave aid and comfort to an enemy that our president and our military took on. I believe these people secretly, the isolationists, were very upset at how smooth that mission went. They're very upset that Israel has essentially destroyed the Iranian military. They're very angry. They're very thrilled that Khamenei lives, whether he's in a bunker, hunkering down, or wherever it is. More when I return. Are you concerned about the rising number of judges who've been limiting President Trump's executive orders? Now, if you're not concerned yet, you should be. When these judges use injunctions to block President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate from the American people, it is we, the people, who lose out. Thankfully, the Heritage Foundation has the policy solutions to stop these threats to our judicial system. So go to heritage.org and get your free copy of the How to Stop Activist Judges ebook. This resource explains exactly what these judges judges are doing, why it matters, and how under the Constitution they can be stopped. President Trump's agenda is in danger, but even more importantly, the safety of Americans and the future of our nation could be at stake. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your free ebook today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
America's most powerful conservative voice. The Mark Levin Show. Dial in now. 877-381-3811.
I'll deal with Pardon Me Bannon tomorrow because there's a lot to get to today. But this guy, you'll learn to despise this guy. He's ripped off you patriotic Americans once too often. He's confessed to it. But now I'm dealing with the happy hooker politics. He's had more positions on issues over his very odd career than a hooker. It's just the truth. Even Mediaite points out text messages made public during the Fox News Dominion voting system's defamation trial revealed that Carlson had privately celebrated Trump's loss in the 2020 presidential election. Is that okay with you, America? You see what a Class A fool this is and fraud? Writing in messages, we are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait. This is when he was coming to you over real television. I hate him passionately, quote unquote, declared Carlson in another message as Trump continued to claim he had rightfully won a second term. It's worse than that. But he's never changed. He's never changed. That was recent years. This is 1999, when he fancied himself a liberal. Slate website, which is radical left, and he's writing one of the individuals there, Evan, and this is Chatsworth Qatarlson. I'd love to add something even meaner to your description of Donald Trump. He's the sort of person I want to keep kicking once he's down. But I don't think I can. You said it all. He is the single most repulsive person on the planet. What a wonderfully pithy, accurate sentence. Congratulations. That said, I still plan to write about him sometime. I don't think I'll be able to help it. Horrible as he is, or perhaps because he is horrible, Trump is interesting, or at least more so than most candidates. Michael Lewis took a lot of crap from more serious-minded political reporters in 1996 for devoting so much ink to Marjorie Taylor, the drunken tire salesman from Michigan who made a brief self-financed run for the Republican nomination. The idea was Marjorie Taylor is irrelevant. Why waste readers' time writing about him? One part of me agrees. Marjorie Taylor barely rose in the level of sideshow. And there's no reason to feed the ego of every rich guy who decides to inflict midlife crises on American voters. That's sober, responsible part of me speaking. The much larger part, the part that once wrote a piece that about Monica Lewinsky's sex therapist, feels differently. For one thing, following Trump around would be amusing as hell. I plan to start the interview with sneezing repeatedly into my palm, then trying to shake his hand. Guaranteed laid right there. I can already see it in print. Donald Trump is afraid of cooties. For another, Trump's candidacy and the Reform Party generally reflects a larger important trend in politics, and maybe the surest sign yet that ideology as a force in national elections is dead. Well, did I just write that last sentence? Pardon me. Let me take that back. The Reform Party isn't a reflection of anything. There's just a bunch of wackos with a website and federal matching funds. But that doesn't mean we can't have a good time covering them. Now that I've revealed myself as essentially shallow and self-interested, let's talk about Drudge. And, of course, he goes on to trash Drudge, who deserves it today, that's for sure. But this is when Drudge was sober or actually owned the site. Nobody ever knows because he's the Howard Hughes these days of secrecy, but without the money. And he goes on. Nothing but dripping contempt for Trump. So that's 1999, what I read you from the texts. Is just a little bit ago, and there's everything in between. And here we are facing the Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran, and what does this clown do? He accuses Trump of complicit in starting World War III. And after the great American military does what it does, he praises Qatar. Qatar. Sick. And I found another great clip of Christopher Hitchens on Real Time with Bill Maher in 2005, relating to the mindset of the jihadi Islamists. And Christopher Hitchens sometimes was really great, right on, and sometimes he was really awful. But he had integrity, whether you agree with him or not. Something Qatarlson, pardon me, Bannon, do not have. None of them have. They have no integrity whatsoever. They have lied to you. They want to separate you from your money. They are grifters. And they say the most outlandish things. And when people realize it, they get together almost like piranha. Now, better yet, cockroaches. It's okay. Here's Christopher Hitchens. Again, 20 years ago. Cut 2, go.
In 1788, when the United States was barely a country,
right,
it was having its sailors taken as slaves by the Barbary states, the states of the Ottoman Empire in North Africa.
Tripoli.
The shores of Tripoli. Shores of Tripoli. And its people, his ships stopped. Its crews carried off into slavery. We estimate 1.5 million European and American slaves taken between 1750 and 1815. Jefferson and Adams went to their ambassador in London and said, why do you do this to us? The United States has never had a quarrel with the Muslim world of any kind. We weren't in the Crusades. We weren't in the war in Spain. Why do you do this to our people and our ships? Why do you plunder and enslave our people? And the ambassador said very plainly, Mr. Abdul Rahman said, because the Quran gives us permission to do so, because you are infidels. And that's our answer. And Jefferson said, well, in that case, I will send a navy which will crush your state, which he did. And a good thing,
but
too. Islamic fundamentalism is not created by American democracy. It's a lie to say so. It's a masochistic lie. And it excuses those who are the real criminals, and it blames us for the attacks made upon us.
And that's what we hear today from the isolationists. The isolations aren't celebrating a great victory in taking out Iran's nuclear sites. They were hoping for something less, failure, especially, so they can continue on with whatever it is that they do, and then attack the president, who they said was complicit. And of course, you, the American people, patriots who wanted our military to succeed. They're not celebrating this victory. In addition, they trash the people of Israel. Majority Jewish, but not all Jewish, who really defeated the Iranian military in 2 days. And after 12 days, the Iranian military back-channeled apparently to the president, asking him, please find a way for us to get out of this. They've been wrong about everything, but their anti-Semitism grows, their anti-Americanism grows. Very dangerous group. And the more they post things, and the more they host each other, this is the incestuous, they host each other and talk about others among themselves. All for everyone to see. This is very important. They identify themselves. They're self-identifiers. America's governor, Ron DeSantis, this is a fantastic man who's done a fantastic job as governor, was a fantastic congressman, no great interventionist. Here he was at a press conference yesterday. Cut 3, go.
President Trump, from the time he came down the escalator in 2015 till the president, has been very consistent. He's also been correct that the policy of the United States is that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And the reason why they can't have a nuclear weapon is, one, we don't want to see nuclear proliferation generally, but two, no country has been more hostile to the United States of America since 1979 than the Iranian mullahs have been. And that started with the hostage crisis in 79 and 80. It continued with the bombing of the Marine Corps barracks in Beirut, Lebanon in 1983 that killed over 240 service members. You also saw it at the bombing of the Khobar Towers in 1996. And then when I was serving in Iraq as a junior officer, the majority of the casualties, both killed in action and wounded in action at that time in the conflict, 2007 into 2008, were at the hands of Iranian-backed Shia militia. So they are responsible for maiming thousands of American service members and probably killing over 1,000 U.S. service members. The terrorism you see in the Middle East, whether it's Houthis, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, that is all because of Iran. Iran funds terrorism around the world, and they're the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. Third, Iran's ideology since 1979 and their ruling class with the Ayatollah and his other clerics. We rely on mutually assured destruction to ensure that someone's not going to launch a nuclear attack. I mean, during the Cold War, Soviets had enough nuclear missiles to wipe America off the map. We had more than enough to wipe them off the map. They knew if they fired one at us, we'd fire back, and then we'd both end up going in a cloud of smoke. So that deterred, because it just wasn't worth doing. You know, the problem with Iran is these are militant Shia Islamists. And so they have a very apocalyptic, radical ideology. So mutually assured destruction for them, if they fire at Israel and knowing Israel will fire back and do immense damage, or the United States, I don't know if they could reach the United States yet, but if they did that, now because they do consider us the great Satan, they know that would be a lot of damage, but that may not be a deterrent for them. That may be an inducement to them. That may be furthering what they want to do. So I think people have recognized that them being able to acquire a nuclear weapon would be a unique challenge, not just for the region, but throughout the world. And no one's really been willing to fully do anything about it. And I think President Trump showed decisiveness to be able, to act when he did. Now people say, well, what are they going to do to respond? And they may, right? I don't think they can respond effectively conventionally against U.S. forces. They just don't have the ability. But that's not typically how they operate. They operate through these proxy groups, through these militia groups, through Hezbollah, through all this stuff. Who knows who they sent across the southern border during Biden's administration? We don't know, but I just think it's important to point out they've been waging conflict against the United States since 1979. They've really just been limited by their means. If they had more means, they would have done more. So I don't know that it's going to radically change certainly their capability, but their posture was hostile before this, and obviously, it will be hostile since then.
Just ask yourselves, who sounds more intelligent, knowledgeable, rational? Ron DeSantis, Christopher Hitchens, my articulation of the situation, or this rabble. And look how fast they turn against our commander-in-chief and our military. Look how fast they turned on the President of the United States and the United States Armed Forces. Look how fast they did it in defense of an Islamist Nazi regime that has slaughtered Americans and other people. Look how fast they pull out the anti-Semitism card and trash Netanyahu. One of, Bannon's favorite things now is to trash Netanyahu. But he's not alone. Bernie Sanders, Tlaib, Omar. And I want you to think also, don't these clowns, these isolationists, sound like the same clowns on the Marxist Islamist left? Don't they sound like Bernie Sanders? Don't they sound like Tlaib? Don't they sound like AOC and Omar? They absolutely do. They absolutely do. Because you have here a fusion of radical isolationists, whether they be on the radical left or whether they be on the fascistic right. So the Marxists and the fascists, isolationists or both, and anti-American. Now, the other side happily wraps themselves in the Palestinian flag, in the Hamas flag, in the Islamic Jihad flag, any flag but the American flag. That needs to be burned. What's made Qatarlson and his ilk more contemptible is they try to wrap themselves in the American flag while they trash our president, our military. And look, I'm not talking about having an opinion that may disagree with this president or any president. I'm not talking about having a policy difference with this president or any president. And so when Qatarlson says that Trump is complicit in what's coming, World War III, that's not having an opinion. That is an effort to character assassinate the president of the United States and undermine and usurp his power. If you were to say something like, I don't agree with the president, this is not something I would do, and then lay out the position, that's different. But that's not what they do. That's not what they do. These heel steppers, these heel clickers, it's always the same thing. They're thugs. And so they attack the president. And I'm sure, hey, look, I'm going to be watching very carefully as the Republican primary for the 2028 presidential election begins to form. And these candidates are going to have to take a side, either with America or with the Islamists. It's that simple. If you're for the Islamists, we'll make sure you don't have a snowball's chance in hell. And so we'll keep an eye on Qatarlson and his ilk, only because we have to, but as rarely as possible, to see who they endorse. Because it's likely whoever they endorse, we will fight like hell and oppose. We want a Trump-like candidate. We want a Reagan-like candidate. We want a commander-in-chief who will defend America, not sell us out. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
President Trump is in Washington with a mandate from the American people to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Bidenflation, and restore American greatness. But since January 20, judges across our country have consistently been blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been analyzing the situation, and they've been able to identify the legal issues with these judges' actions, as well as the solutions that can end this potential crisis. Now, to see the results of the Heritage's analysis for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. There you'll gain exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of limiting President Trump's executive actions. Stopping these judges might be the only way to protect Americans and take back our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, that's heritage.org/Levin, and get your free copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. This isn't about sniping. This isn't about any of that. This is a battle for the heart of the country. It's a difference between fake MAGA, fake conservatives, fake patriots, and you, we the people. If it was about sniping, I wouldn't be involved because I don't care. And you may recall I really rarely ever mentioned any of these people, even though I knew they were reprobates. But there's a time and place for everything. And at some point, you got to stand up and be counted. And when I talk to people, go to my local diner here for breakfast sometimes, or go to the barber shop or wherever, I find America despises the Islamist regime in Iran, is thrilled with President Trump's actions in our military. Almost none of them know about Qatarlson or, Bannon or any of these people. The few who do despise them because they took the side of the enemy. And they're always going to take the side of the enemy. Always. When we return, ceasefire. We'll raise some of the issues we raised the other day, and we'll see if they were worth raising, number one. Number two, there are ceasefires and there are ceasefires. And there are presidents and there are presidents. Under this president, a ceasefire is much different than under other presidents, is it not? We'll have that discussion. We also have a great guest showing up. There's a big primary taking place in New York tomorrow, and there's an Islamist who may get the Democratic nomination. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We spent a lot of time on this last night, but I think, considering some of the things that happened really very early in the morning here, during the course of the night and then day in Israel, it's worth reiterating and commenting on. And you'll notice at no time do I trash the President of the United States. Do I say he's committing this, he's committing that? No. The enemy whose military has been defeated by the Israelis, this was posted last evening, whose nuclear program has been destroyed by our president and military, survives, at least for now. We shall see how things unfold. I've been and remain highly skeptical of deals made with terrorists who have half a century record of killing Americans, Israelis, and anyone else in their way, and refuse to voluntarily abandon their nuclear weapons, lying and deceiving every step of the way. Perhaps this is another POTUS strategy. Perhaps POTUS believes this will smoke them out, and if they do not adhere to ceasefire terms or some agreement, then all bets are off. But they've already been smoked out. And will whatever is agreed to include their proxies? Will Russia stop supplying ground-to-air missile defense systems? Will China stop selling the regime fuel for their ballistic missiles? Will they stop building ballistic missiles? My prediction, based on all of this and more, is that the terrorist regime's belief system and mindset will not be changed at all. Just its tactics, maybe. We shall see how this plays out. Now, that seems to be a very rational comment, and we want the administration to succeed. We want America to succeed, and it seems to me these are crucial issues that still need to be addressed and may well be addressed. And then I added, because I hit the send, as I want to do while I'm on the air here, but I meant to add, and I added quickly thereafter, to be absolutely clear, as I didn't finish my post, that President Trump is to be trusted. He wants to win for America, and his record is stellar. He also trusts that the issues I mentioned here will be part of the process. But Prime Minister Netanyahu has signed on. Let's see how it goes. I'm rooting for them. Now, does that seem like warmonger talk? Does that seem anything like it? I mean, if you're sitting down and you're either working a ceasefire or you get a ceasefire and then you're trying to figure out what to do next, don't you want to know what the Russians are going to do, the Chinese are going to do, the nature of the ballistic missiles and all these other things? Of course. Of course. Of course they do. So what happened? Right out of the box, the Iranians are firing ballistic missiles after midnight, our time tonight. Well, they only fired 2. Maybe it was 1. Maybe it was 4. Oh, okay. The Israelis wanted to respond. The president asked them not to. Also, the head of their atomic weapons program, he declared that this regime intends to reconstruct its nuclear program. He said that. They intend to reconstruct it. President put out a Truth Social and said, no, they're not going to be able to do that. In other words, the mindset of the Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran has not changed, and it's not going to change. To do that, from their perspective, they have to abandon their so-called religious beliefs. They're not going to do that. They kill and maim, they send out suicide bombers to advance it. Why do you think there's sleeper cells in the United States that have been here? Why do you think they've killed thousands of Americans directly and indirectly over the course of 47 years? Why do you think they wanted to build a nuclear program in the first place? See, they prove the point. They believe they're going to heaven based on how many people they convert, but the people they don't convert, they slaughter. They still didn't unilaterally surrender. We didn't ask them to unilaterally surrender. We have a ceasefire, and we'll see how that goes. And it's much easier for democracy to place pressure on a democracy, the United States to place pressure on Israel, than it is for a regime for whom pressure doesn't seem to matter. There was a lot of pressure placed on this regime to the lead up of Israel's attack on them. Even to the point where Israel had blown out so much of their military, not the ballistic missiles, they were working on them, but they had a massive stockpile, but their army, their Navy, their Air Force, non-existent for most intents and purposes. Even with threats of our sending our B-2 bombers and taking out their... They never surrendered. In fact, they never gave an inch. Period. They would not agree to the core issue of spinning centrifuges. They were defiant. They put out statements. It'll never happen. So we had to take military action. But the seed of the bloodlust ideology remains. Why do you think we're on high alert today all across the country? Why do you think we haven't closed down TSA? Why do you think the terrorist working groups, local, state, federal, county governments working together, have not closed their doors? This is not peace in our time. Their nuclear weapons are gone, so they can't use them against us. Their conventional weapons have all but been destroyed by the Israelis, who are smeared and attacked by the isolationists. Why? Because they live and they survive and they fight. Any of these people are Holocaust deniers, or they bring Holocaust deniers on their programs. Or they're anti-Semites. They try to hide it, but they can't anymore. They're out of the closet. And history will speak to them, as history speaks to all these people at one point or another. Books will be written, articles will be written, videos and audios will be made. Who was for America, who was for liberty, who was for democracy, and who was for the opposite. That will be their legacy. But in the present time, our legacy is to confront them and battle them. Through the political process, through free speech, through freedom of association. Not to be intimidated, these are thugs. But bullies don't survive very long. They just don't. So is it proper to raise questions about this? Of course it is. Was the taking out of their nuclear sites? Does that mean they were going to surrender their terrorist ideology? Of course it didn't. And it hasn't. And it won't. They're not going to stop. They're going to try and kill us. They want more 9/11s. Bigger and better. That's their ideology. We have to be prepared overseas and at home. That's the way it is, folks. They're here right now. They said they're sleeper cells. The border was wide open. We've said, others have said, we're sure terrorists have come in. Terrorists from where? From where? Canada? From where? The Bahamas? Where have these terrorists come in from? The Islamo-Nazi terrorists come in from where there's Islamo-Nazis. That's where they come in from. And they're here. Some of them are in our streets at our colleges and universities getting protection by our courts. Many of them are funded by, directly and indirectly, Qatar. Right, Qatarlson? What do you think about that? What do you think about Qatarlson? Does he ever criticize the Qataris, Mr. Producer? Ever? No. He wants you to believe they're Mahatma Gandhi. But you see, this is the way it is. Now, leadership means everything. A commander-in-chief means everything. That's why you'll have some forever wars, quote-unquote, and there's some wars that are righteous. They need to be fought to save our country, to defend liberty. What was done with our bombers and our bunker busters was righteous in the name of humanity. Righteous. Everything's not Afghanistan and Biden. Every leader's not Biden and Obama. Certainly Trump is not. He's a tremendous leader. One other thing. I don't buy this moral relativism. Israel is not Iran. And this is where I want to raise this issue. There's nothing to blame the Israelis for. They're trying to survive. Those ballistic missiles are hitting their people. They're hitting their cities while they don't fire on Iranian cities and their populations. There is no moral equivalency whatsoever. Period. It's not about how Israel was going to break the ceasefire, as I just heard one commentator put it. Israel was responding to the Islamic regime that had just fired ballistic missiles into their country. And I want you to think about it. One ballistic missile, what's the big deal? I ask you this. If Mexico fired one ballistic missile into America after having fired hundreds of them into our cities, or if Canada done the same, what would our reaction be? Absolute obliteration. So this is a double standard. There's no question about it. There is no moral equivalency between an Islamo-Nazi Islamist regime that wants nuclear weapons to slaughter us and another country that is democratically elected and with which we share our Judeo-Christian vows. There simply isn't. The mindset of the Israeli government is the same mindset as our government. And what the Israeli government's trying to do to protect its people after the slaughter of October 7th and after the threats with atomic weapons are the same exact thing that our government would do. Even more, I believe. That's why we consider Donald Trump a great leader. That's why Netanyahu is a great leader. Whether the anti-Semites and the isolationists, whether the Marxists and the Islamists like it or not. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. You know, it's a pleasure to have, actually, my old buddy, Curtis Sliwa, on the program. Curtis Sliwa is running for mayor as a Republican in New York, and given all the really bizarre things going on the Democrat side, he has a real chance. And Curtis, welcome, and I want to talk to you first before we get into your situation. Zohran Mamdani. This guy has promoted international terrorism, hasn't he? Let's be blunt.
Yes, he has, and more importantly, Mark, he and his followers are out there, hipsters and millennials. They've been working hard the streets. They've been going round the clock. And unfortunately, the other Democrats, especially Andrew Cuomo, has basically run a rose garden strategy, has not been out in the streets, and expected people just to come out because of his name to elect him. And I think you're going to see quite a shock, a changing of the generational guard, because most of us baby boomers, if you've lived in New York City, you've either fled to Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Texas, Tennessee, or parts unknown, or unfortunately you may have passed away. So I don't think Team Cuomo has factored that in. And there's a very real chance with ranked choice voting that this guy, Zohran Mamdani, will win the Democratic primary. And then I will have to face him in the general election.
Well, there's still voting in New York going on right now. And this is the biggest show in New York. What do you want to tell your fellow citizens? I mean, it might be easier to beat that guy, but the fact is you don't want any party nominating a radical. He's a Marxist, Islamist like this in the greatest city. Look, I'm not originally in New York. I'm a Philadelphian, but it is what it is. The greatest city in America.
I think what you have to say, Mark, is what this candidate stands for when it comes to dealing with the key issues, which continues to be law and order and quality of life. He would eliminate prisons. He would not incarcerate anyone. He would not hire any police. But it is interesting, do as I say, not as I do. He and his team say that they are under threat, so they are protected by armed guards. But rather than hire trained professional police officers for the city, for average citizens, he wants social workers. So what I've suggested, Mark, is wait, if you're under attack, why don't you surround yourself with social workers? And you know, Mark, we just passed the anniversary of June 19th, 1992, where I was shot 5 times with hollow point bullets on the orders of John Gotti Sr., the John Gotti Jr., and the Gambino crime family. I know what it's like to live under a threat. But I tell you this much, I would not be surrounding myself with social workers. So this guy, again, double standard. He's protected by armed off-duty police officers now, but he recommends that the people not have police, but that they have social workers.
But it's... What would happen in New York if a guy like this gets elected?
It'd be massive flight. So for all the people who have already fled to other parts of the country, you would see not only a drain in terms of equity, in terms of investment, in terms of business, but people who are holding on, hoping that things will get back on track, hoping that we can go back to when it was, when we had Rudy Giuliani as mayor, when we had George Pataki as governor, when we had Michael Bloomberg as our mayor, and we had no chaos and corruption. Those who are willing to sort of stick it out. My whole campaign team is improve, don't move. Elect me, and you won't have to flee. Elect Curtis Sliwa, and you won't have to flee. And I think that's why so many people's hopes are now invested in me, that I can do what unfortunately Eric Adams did not do, did not deliver on his promises. Our city just got worse. And obviously the Democrats would make it that much worse, Zohran Mamdani and Cuomo. But remember, they all get to run in the general election. No matter who wins the Democratic primary, they all have independent lines, and they all have to face off with me. And I am going to be relentless, Mark. I'm going to be reminding them. I warned them all about Eric Adams, said he would be corrupt and we would have chaos. Unfortunately, I was correct. And I warned them about Andrew Cuomo, who fled Albany when he feared impeachment. And he's the reason we're in the absolute catastrophe that we are now with no cash bail, which he has doubled down on. He does not want anybody arrested and charged with bail and remanded to jail. So basically, they're all into this mentality, Mark, to simplify it for your national audience. They would like us to continue to lock up toothpaste in our local drugstores as opposed to lock up criminals.
When we come back, I want to go through this a little bit more so it's clear that people are running in the Democrat primary, the Republican primary eventually, these other primaries, but they're also running on independent tickets. So you're going to have a hell of a lineup even in the general election. And how does that lay things out for Curtis Sliwa in the Republican Party when there's so many more Democrats and leftists than there are Republicans and conservatives? This is important, America. We'll be right back. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're back with our friend Curtis Sliwa, who's running for mayor of New York. We're talking about this Islamist, who's also a Marxist, and he embraced the international intifada. He says it's just a statement by the Palestinians. No, it's not. It's a war cry of terrorism internationally. And if this guy's elected, I can assure you Jews and others are going to leave that city like there's no tomorrow. Curtis Sliwa was trying to fight this. He would be a very rational and solid alternative. So, Curtis Sliwa, I just want to understand. Let's say he wins the Democrat nominee, or even Cuomo does. They're also running on third-party tickets, meaning they're still going to be available for people to vote for. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. So it really doesn't matter who wins or loses tonight in the Democratic primary. You'll have Cuomo on one line. You'll have Mamdani on another line. You'll have Eric Adams, who has no party line but an independent line. And then I have a special icebreaker line in addition to being the Republican candidate. You're going to like this, Mark, and all your listeners. You, as maybe one of the greatest pet lovers of all time who's ever done radio, the first ever Protect Animals line. No-kill shelters, and we put animal abusers in jail. We prioritize that. This is an issue that people who disagree with one another agree. Mm-hmm. We all love animals. Look at what the Trump administration has said. No more Dr. Fauci-style testing on animals. Look what Governor DeSantis just did in Florida. You abuse animals, especially in the time of a natural emergency, you're going to jail. The Republicans have led on this. And as you know, I and my wife, we've been rescuing animals for years. Mm-hmm. And if you don't treat animals well, you don't treat people well. And look at New York City with all of our homeless and emotionally disturbed. Mark, that's going to stop. We're taking care of our Americans who are in need. We found $6 billion for migrants that supposedly we didn't have. We're starting to take care of our veterans, our homeless, our emotionally disturbed, and most importantly, our animals.
The other thing is, Curtis, you are well known, have a history of law and order, a history of law and order, a community policing, this sort of thing, with the guardian angel. So you would hit the ground running. You would hit the ground running, knowing what you need to do. You'd be able to work with the NYPD. They originally were very skeptical of you. Not anymore. They embrace you. And so you are a quintessential New Yorker. You're not interested in revolution. You're not interested in advancing some kind of ideology. You want the city to work and you want it to prosper again, right?
Absolutely. And remember, I've been doing this for 46 years with volunteers who've done what at a time trained professional police officers were not permitted to do or couldn't do because we didn't have enough. You remember right before Christmas, the most horrible situation that I've ever witnessed in the subways or experienced, when that woman was set on fire by that migrant. The police did not respond. The citizens did not respond. That poor soul twisted like a melting candle. And because we had a pyromaniac migrant that we were paying $400 a night to put up and give him culturally appropriate food, that's going to stop, Mark. We're going to make sure that the subways are safe for everyone, especially so many of the women who are part of the workforce who won't use the subways any longer because they fear being attacked or having men come up and be the pervs that they are in the subway with no ramifications, with no consequences.
No, I think you'd be a tremendous mayor. And I also think this Islamist, and that's what he is. Not a Muslim, he's an Islamist. In some ways, almost a jihadist. But he's a Marxist Islamist. Exactly what's wrong with what's going on in our country. He's an apologist. He reminds me of this guy that's the mayor of London, whose name escapes me. Another radical. And with radicals, follow radicals. And can you imagine New York City, Curtis Sliwa, being a sort of a breeding ground or attraction to more and more radicals from throughout the country and throughout the world, settling in New York City because of this guy opening his arms wide, no doubt the propaganda he would use, no doubt the policies that he would put in place to accommodate them, don't you think?
For sure, because as good men, good women flee New York City in record numbers, you know who they're going to be replaced by? People from across the country who believe in a radical, progressive, liberal ideology. They will come to New York City. They will not be happy until they take down the flag of capitalism, the flag of the United States, and replace it with socialism. And that ain't happening, Mark, over my dead body. It's not happening.
I'm very excited. I'm excited if you can get in there. What a complete change it would be from the ineptitude of the current mayor, from the communist radicalism of the prior mayor. New York needs a solid, good mayor who's going to run the city as efficiently and effectively as possible and do what a mayor needs to do, protect the citizenry and keep the streets clean. That's you. God bless. And I've endorsed you, obviously. I've endorsed Sliwa. Probably help you in some places and hurt you in others. But nonetheless, Curtis, God bless you. You're a good man, brother.
Well, thank you. And all the Levinites out there, the way they can help me is to contribute to my campaign because I've gotten a late start. Just go to sliwafornyc.com, sliwafornyc.com, and I will improve New York City so that all of these folks don't move down into your areas and turn your states purple. You don't want that to happen, Mark.
No, but that's very good that you mentioned that. Anybody who can help him, please help him, because what a fantastic night that would be if Curtis Lee is elected mayor. Take care of yourself, Curtis.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, brother. And that primary, Democrat primary anyway, is going on tonight in New York. They wanted the whole nation to be aware of this because it matters. I mean, that AOC election in New York had consequences for the country. So will this one. I want to get back to the one missile crowd. Only one missile was fired into Israel. I just heard a host say this. Only one missile. And Israel then proceeded to violate the ceasefire. That's what this person said, Rich. A complete lie. I don't know what the problem is here. So now one ballistic missile shot into a country is okay? And by the way, we're almost 1,000 of them, whatever it is, 500 of them have been fired before, and they're aimed at the population centers and have caused death and destruction. One more, that's okay. Don't do anything about it. Let me tell you something, folks. That's such bullcrap, it's not even funny. Let me ask you a question. If one ballistic missile was shot into this country from Mexico, let's say from the drug cartels, just as an imagined point, would that be okay with you? How about one's fired into this country from Canada? Would that be okay with you? How about one fired into this country from Cuba or Venezuela or Nicaragua? Would that be okay with you? Would it be okay with our great president who wouldn't put up with it for 2 seconds? And let's say that missile was preceded by 500 missiles that hit Detroit, L.A., New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Dallas, you name it. Caused the death of American citizens and widespread destruction. And that this enemy was purposely aiming at our population centers. Let's say they hit some hospitals. Would that be okay with you? Just one more missile. One more. Is there any force on the face of the earth that would stop us from responding to that, Mr. Producer? Is there any? None. So let's stop the hypocrisy. Put ourselves in the shoes of other people. Let's stop the hypocrisy. And the Israelis, because Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump are close, they did something we would never do. And by the way, I don't think we should ever do. What do you think of that? And they cut off the response to the enemy because Donald Trump asked them to send the planes back. Their jet fighters back. There's not a force on earth that would have persuaded us in any respect to do that. Now that's what makes that little country different in the face of the enemy that they have to deal with. Truly so. After all the death that they've suffered, the war that they've been through at the hands of this regime, I want you to think about this, because nobody's telling you this on TV, that's for sure. They send their jets out, the president asked them to pull them back, and they pull them back. What do you think of that? Isn't that amazing? Meanwhile, Netanyahu is attacked by the isolationists because he even sent his jets out in the first place, because he clearly wanted to break the ceasefire, because he wants regime change, because he's this, because he's that. No, that's not the way it works. And I will continue to be Radio Free America right here. I almost can't wait till tomorrow, Mr. Producer, to expose, pardon me, Bannon to the world. They don't really know this guy, do they? Man, oh, Manischewitz. Man, oh, Manischewitz. By the way, I hate Manischewitz, just as a point. But that was an old commercial. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans, with plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data. You can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. You know, I'm sure glad the French, back during the Revolutionary War, believed in regime change, Mr. Producer. We wouldn't have the United States of America. What is Mark talking about? Something that the isolationists never want to talk about. The most powerful military force on the face of the earth was Britain. The second most powerful, but very close second, was France. Two monarchies. They were fighting in Europe, where the British were diverted to the American colonies. And they sent massive, what we would call today, armed forces here to put it down, because they didn't want this to spread throughout the British Empire. They should have been able to do it fairly easily, except for one thing. We're Americans. Even back then, the colonists. They were a disparate group, colonists from different colonies at the time, really weren't even states. Citizens of all stripes. Ragtag army. Private militia. Volunteers. And look what they did. We would not have won the Revolutionary War at Yorktown. The last major battle would not have happened. We would have lost. And there would be no United States of America but for the French Navy. The British had moved their navy down from the coast off of New York to Virginia to join with Cornwallis's forces, which were substantial. Except they were blockaded by the French Navy. The French Navy wanted regime change in the Americas. They wanted trade. They wanted to blunt the imperial aspirations of the British because they had their own imperial aspirations, and we would wind up going to war with them 40 or some years later, give or take. Just as a footnote. If the British had been bombarding our troops, our soldiers, while they were confronting the British soldiers, we would have lost. But this is why history is important. This is why it's important to reject the sloganeers. For the 4 billionth time, foreign policy is about prudence. It's not about ideology. The isolationists are about ideology, and a deadly ideology for us. Deadly, absolutely deadly. When you have enemies that are on the move, evil enemies, like the communist Chinese, who are genocidal, or Putin, Qatarlson's best friend, whose head is so far stuck up Putin's ass it comes out of Putin's right ear. Even Putin mocked Carlson, like we all do. He's become a joke line, Qatarlson. Become a joke line. And the Islamist Nazis, wherever they be. The isolationists have no answer for them, none. They believe it's our fault they exist, it's our fault that they hate us, it's our fault that they kill us. They have absolutely no policy, none. No strategy, nothing. But if it wasn't for the interventionism of the French, if it wasn't for their desire to have regime change, there would be no United States of America. What hypocrisy, huh? Just like the one missile. It's only one ballistic missile. It's only one. I watched this on TV. And the Israelis were ready to go to war again. Well, what does that say to our enemies, Mr. Producer? Just fire one ballistic missile into our country? That'll be acceptable? How sick. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I want you to listen to this. CBS News poll. Do you approve or disapprove of U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities? Now remember, Chatsworth Qatarlson, pardon me, Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene with an E on the end. Got a new one, Mr. Producer. No Pants Gates. This is actually becoming fun, I hate to say it. There's such freaks and frauds. But anyway, let's continue. They have no following. Now, there are people who have been convinced to pay money to follow some of them and so forth, but they have nothing. And those who give them platforms, they will go down with them too one day. History won't treat them well either. There's no cutting this baby in half. Either you're for America or you're against her. Either you're for the Islamic Nazi regime in Iran that has slaughtered American troops and citizens and seeks to blow up us and the Israelis, or you firmly stand against them. Doesn't seem like a complicated scenario, does it, America? Republicans approve of United States strikes on the Iranian nuclear facilities, 85%, disapprove 15%. So that's a 70% spread. Now let's talk about MAGA. I've said repeatedly, MAGA, there's real MAGA and there's fake MAGA. Real MAGA is Trump. Fake MAGA is the grifters, the fraudsters, the low IQers who claim to be the leaders of MAGA and claim that MAGA supports them. The media claim that there's a great divide. Well, let me ask the media about this great divide in MAGA. 94% of MAGA Republicans support the United States airstrikes on the Iranian nuclear facilities. 94% approve, 6% don't. So where's the divide? Where's the divide? So, ladies and gentlemen, Chatsworth Qatarlson doesn't even represent 6% because 6%, probably 5% don't know who the hell he is, and they don't give a damn. And even less so would, pardon me, Bannon, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and No Pants Gates. Let me repeat these numbers because numbers don't lie. They lie. MAGA Republicans approve of what President Trump and our military did 94%. Disapprove 6%. Qatarlson said that Trump was complicit in starting World War III. That alone should tell you what an a-hole moron this guy is. Rooting against America. Undermining the commander-in-chief in the middle of a military operation. He's not alone. Fat boy. The fat guy on Deliverance. Rosie O'Donnell. He fits all the bills. Pardon me, Bannon. How many of you have been pardoned? How many of you have been pardoned for potential crimes? How many of you? Have you, Mr. Producer? How many of you have pled guilty to committing fraud? I'll get into this more tomorrow. I'll give it the proper attention it deserves. Well, that's Bannon. We love Breitbart here. Love it. Alex Marlow's fantastic. Joel Pollak's fantastic, on and on and on. But the reason Bannon's not there is because he trashed Donald Trump in a book, and then he resigned. He was forced out. That's all these guys do. They claim they stand for America when they stand for the enemy. They claim they're MAGA when they're fake MAGA. They claim they stand for the president when they stab him in the back. And I will continue to expose them. So 85% of Republicans per se support, 15% disapprove. MAGA Republicans, 94% disapprove, 6%. Think about that. Think about that, Megan. Think about it, everybody. That's incredible. How do you like that? But we already knew this because even the strikes, even before the strikes, it was 90% of MAGA, 84% of Republicans, even before the strikes. So why do they get all this attention? Because these left-wing media sites, websites, these left-wing media platforms want you to believe that there's a civil war going on in MAGA. There is no civil war going on in MAGA. There's no war going on in MAGA. None. None. You've got certain individuals, and that's it. And that's it. Now, I do radio, but I'm also a podcaster. But anybody could be a podcaster. It doesn't mean they're good. It doesn't mean they're popular. It doesn't mean they have a following. What's it take, maybe $5,000 to get all the equipment, Mr. Producer? If that. If that. So pardon me, Bannon, he's a nothing. He's not even a footnote to a footnote to a footnote in broadcasting. Nothing. They must spend a hell of a lot of money on food for that guy, though. Clearly never missed a meal. Just saying, with all due respect. Marjorie Taylor Greene, does she actually work for our taxpayer money? Does she? Today her head's exploding all over the internet. You know, she wants me fired from Fox America. That's right. She feels threatened by me. She wants me fired. She's a good little fascist, isn't she? Isn't that what a fascist would do? I mean, sounds like one anyway, no? Wants me fired? But she claims she believes in free speech. Only her speech. Because she never shuts the hell up. That's number one. And number two, she apparently spends her time getting taxpayer money on a laptop. Not a lap dance, a laptop. Crazy. But it's okay. It's okay. I just want the people of Georgia and her district to know who's representing them. Person that stabbed Trump in the back on more than one occasion. Person who said that the Iranian regime didn't kill Americans when they killed thousands through them and their proxies. An Iranian regime that's tried to assassinate our president. You have a man who's been charged with that effort one day after the election. But the Iranians, what have they ever done to us, she asks. Because she's stupid. You can do better than her. If you had a representative with a 12 IQ, they'd be smarter than her. But, look, what can I say? The point is this. You need to know, you folks out there, you're not an outlier. Your minds work perfectly well. You're reasonable, rational people. Now, you might say, Mark, oh my God, the comments that go on. There are trolls. There are foreign government trolls, North Korea, Iran, Russia, and others. So many of the comments there about Jew boy and like a kite, those kind of words, that sort of thing, those are not red-blooded Americans, unless, of course, they're followers of these isolationists. Maybe they are, for that matter. But most of them are probably these trolls. So don't read the comments. Don't read them. They don't matter. The internet can be your friend, it can be your enemy. The internet can be a source of real good, substantive information and free speech, or it can be a whole toilet full of scumbags. It depends on how you use it. It depends on how you... I don't live on the internet. I write things and I put them on the internet. But I don't live there. A lot of these guys that have, oh, look at this, he's got 9 million followers, because that's where they live. I live here on radio. This is where I live. This is my home. Not the internet. But I will go to the internet as needed. I said to a guy today, so many great people out there. I said, here's the problem. When you're dealing with Qatarlson, or pardon me, Bannon, or pantsless Gates, or Marjorie Taylor Greene, or their ilk, unfortunately, you have to go into the sewer. This is where they live. This is where they operate. You have to go into the sewer. So I have to go into the sewer. But we do like to come out of the sewer, take a shower, leave these people behind, and get into some very, very important issues. That said, this issue of them trying to claim that they represent the vast majority of the American people is BS. Their voices are significantly outnumber their numbers. I didn't know this. Marjorie Taylor Greene, according to... No, I better not do that. Marjorie, I'll give you a pass tonight. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
It's a pleasure to have Daniel Flesch with us, Senior Policy Analyst for Middle East Policy at the Great Heritage Foundation. Daniel, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Mark. Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about your background so when we discuss some of these things, people have a better idea about you.
Certainly. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a senior policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation focused on the Middle East and North Africa. I also have a background serving as senior advisor to Israel's mission to the United Nations under Danny Danon during his first time over at the UN, as well as Gilad Erdan. And I also served as a paratrooper and lone soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces a number of years ago.
Now, so people understand what a lone soldier is, explain that too.
Certainly. So Israel is a very unique country in obviously many regards, but one in particular is that just like every Jew around the world has a certain birthright to become a citizen of Israel, so too does every Jew have the opportunity to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces, even without being a citizen. And there are any number between 8,000 and 10,000 individuals like myself who come from abroad to serve in the Israel Defense Forces. And those of us who do not have family or parents living in Israel, we are considered lone soldiers because we come on our own accord, either voluntarily or we come to become a citizen and then are drafted. And we serve alongside Israelis in regular units. I was a paratrooper. I was the only non-Israeli in my squad. And so we are a unique kind of soldier. But the state of Israel, the last number of years, has come to really recognize and value the contributions that Jews from around the world come to fight and at times die alongside their fellow Israelis.
All right. So you've served in combat, perhaps?
I served from 2010 to 12 during a time of relative peace, although certainly I was serving along Israel's borders and even inside Judea and Samaria. It's never quite peaceful.
No. Okay. Well, thank you very much. So let's start this way. What do you make of two things together? That is, what the Israeli military did to Iran really in a matter of days, and what the United States military did to Iran in a matter of hours with respect to these nuclear sites.
Well, it's a very interesting, perhaps, bookend of history or history rhymes in that this war has been called the 12-Day War, which obviously harkens back to the 6-Day War in 1967, in which Israel defeated 3 Arab armies, the Egyptians, Jordanians, and Syrians. But important about that war was Israel went from being a country effectively under siege to being recognized as a regional power and having a sense of security for the first time in its 20-year history. Similar here with the 12-Day War, what Israel did was finally take the battle that began on October 7th to the real enemy, which is the Iranians. Of course, this war did not begin on October 7th. It began in 1979 when the Islamic Republic came to power and declared war on Israel and the United States by calling us respectively the little Satan, the great Satan, and saying death to Israel and death to the United States. And so what Israel did over a matter of 12 days, really effectively the first 72 to 96 hours, was deplete Iran of its ability to strike Israel with any significant meaning. And I mean by that is targeting the missile launchers, the missiles themselves, the nuclear production sites, the nuclear facilities, the nuclear scientists, et cetera, et cetera. And more than the physical damage that Israel inflicted was ultimately removing from Iran its final offensive capability, which is the ballistic missile capacity and the nuclear power that it seeks. Israel has already done in the last 20 months roll back Iran's primary offensive capability, which has been its proxy network around the region. So what Israel did was really reset the game in the Middle East, as it's been doing since, I'd say, late 2023, early 2024, when starting on the offensive against Hamas and Hezbollah. So it's been nothing short of, frankly, miraculous and incredible to see. It is a definitive point on the career of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, of Israeli history. And then getting to the American element here, Operation Midnight Hammer was also a resounding success. And more so than, which I'm sure people are fairly aware of, the actual technical capabilities and the operation itself in terms of dropping 14 bunker busters on 3 different sites, was the message it sent to the Russians as well as the Chinese. That particularly President Trump, he is willing and able to use force, not in a drawn-out way to achieve some lofty goal of regime change or nation building, but actually to further American interests. And that sends a message, a very powerful message to our even more competitive enemies, the Russians and the Chinese, that we can use force, we will use force to defend our interests and in support of an ally. So there's a lot more to be said, but I think those are some of the highlights of what it means for the Israelis as well as the Americans.
Shouldn't we be celebrating this? I mean, this is a regime that has slaughtered Americans, military and civilians, directly and through proxies. This is a regime that has tried to destroy Yemen and Lebanon and other countries, that has been behind Hamas. This is a regime that has aligned itself with North Korea, China, and Russia, providing oil to China and drones to Russia. This is a regime that had sleeper cells here long before we hit their nuclear sites. This is a regime that's tried to assassinate the President of the United States. This is a regime who wanted nuclear weapons to use them against us. Shouldn't Americans be celebrating? You know, here's the thing, Daniel. There is a poll out by CBS. 94% of MAGA Republicans support what was done. Does it get any bigger than that?
And this is one of the times in American history that you'd think everyone from right, left, and center would rally behind America, American action in pursuit of our national security and our interests, and behind the president, particularly not only in the need to initiate the strike, but also afterwards, realizing the president was true to his word. He wanted to execute a precision strike. He did just that. He does not have any more lofty ambitions of changing Iran. Now, we all hope, wish, and pray that the Iranian people can take it upon themselves, certainly, to find new leadership, to reclaim their country from the mullahs. But the fact is that is not, at least today in the president's estimation, what I think is the right one. It is not in America's interest to do beyond what he just did over the weekend. And just to add some more context and numbers to your good list of the reasons why Iran is an enemy of the United States, like I said, from day one, Iran kidnapped, by Iran I do mean the regime, not the people, but kidnapped Americans, held them hostage for over 400 days. Over 1,000 Americans have died at the hands of the Iranians, including 17% of all combat deaths in Iraq.
All right, don't hang up. We're going to carry over the bottom of the hour. We're with the Senior Policy Analyst for Middle East Policy at the Heritage Foundation, Daniel Flesch. We'll be right back.
The voice of reason in a sea of lunacy. Mark Levin. Dial in now. 877-381-3811.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're here with Daniel Flesch, Senior Policy Analyst, Middle East Policy at the Heritage Foundation. We love the Heritage Foundation here. They're not only a sponsor on our podcast. I've had probably half a century association with that organization, and they have a tremendous president there right now and a tremendous staff. We're big fans of the Heritage Foundation here. Daniel, this post, I don't know what we'll call it, this period of time, this ceasefire and so forth, can we really anticipate, especially after the Trump years, that this regime will stand firm? Didn't one of their, or if not their senior nuclear, whatever they call them, say that they're going to recompose their nuclear sites and so forth? In other words, it is a very evil ideology, this jihadist Islamist ideology. They believe it's cooked into their faith. I don't see this, certainly not in the long term, dissuading them. Do you?
No, not exactly. And I don't think anyone, at least in Israel and here on the right side of the aisle, is under any dissuasion or pretense that they will be seeking alternate means of harnessing nuclear power, or even changing their effective motivating ideology, which is, as you mentioned, this Islamic jihadism, this hatred of Israel and the West. And it's largely because Israel stands in defiance of their belief that Islam is the final message from God, and that the Jewish state, the state that was comprised after the Holocaust, not because of, but just simply after, is a state of refugees, and they are standing in defiance of Iran, and now even more so have completely dismantled the proxy network as well as taken the fight to the regime itself. So I think right now the ceasefire will hold, at least in the immediate run. Israel certainly has an interest because Operation Rising Lion, aside from being largely a resounding success, has achieved most of their goals. In fact, the last couple of days, most of these strikes from the Israeli jets have targeted regime symbols, such as the IRGC headquarters, which is obviously a military target. Also, the Iranian regime has a doomsday clock in Tehran. It's supposed to count down the time to 2040 when Israel is supposed to be destroyed. That was taken out. They targeted Evin prison, a notorious prison in Iran as well. So Israel's really largely achieved the objectives from a military standpoint. It's the political piece in some ways that it's going to have to win with the United States. But we should be under no illusion that the regime will not try to reconstitute its dominance over the Middle East.
The Heritage Foundation has been not only a tremendous organization within our own country promoting constitutionalism and capitalism and secure borders and so forth, But it also, in that vein, has been very supportive of the state of Israel, like the Esther Project, hasn't it?
Very much so. I'm glad you brought this up. So Project Esther is an initiative of the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism, of which Heritage is one of dozens of organizations, but we are a significant contributor towards. And Project Esther, the task force is charged with executing Project Esther, which is a strategy to combat today's anti-Semitism that we're seeing in the United States. And it's an anti-Semitism that is largely an anti-American form of anti-Semitism. It's something we identify as the pro-Hamas networks, those organizations and individuals that are out there waving Hamas flags one day, Hezbollah flags the other day. Today they're waving Iranian flags, chanting globalized intifada, free Palestine. At the end of the day, while they are animated right now by their anti-Semitism, and they've used October 7th and the attack and the ongoing war in Gaza and elsewhere in the region to take to the streets, and as we've seen recently, to murder people in Washington, D.C., as well as Boulder, Colorado, and other acts of violence in the past 20 months. These are people who are fundamentally seeking to destroy American society. So this is not a fight just of or for the Jewish people. It's of and for the American people. And that's something that I personally, actually, Heritage, also am in charge of leading. I'm very privileged to be able to do that.
Wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you and talk to you. And I wish you all the best, and I'm sure we'll have you back. So God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, Mark. Always a pleasure. Take care.
All right, you take care of yourself. So there I'm minding my own business, Mr. Producer, and then apparently there's something on the internet. It comes over the transom, as so much comes over the transom here, which is a very powerful video that I'm posting on my social sites right now. You ought to take a look at it. Well, what is it, Mark? You take a look at it. I start with the word wowzer, that video. Right, Mr. Producer? It's up there. Take a look at it. Share it. And, of course, digest it. Digest it mentally, obviously. Ladies and gentlemen, with all the news that's been out there, it's very, very important that we spend time on it. With all the fifth column isolationists who were tried to undermine our armed forces and our president, and we need to be confronted and exposed. All the illegal immigrants and the things they're doing against ICE and our police, the lower courts that are corrupt and tyrannical, that are releasing the enemy into our streets, undermining the President of the United States, with so much going on that's so important. I have not been able to talk about my book On Power in any I would say, in any way that properly conveys what's in it. And it's important to me that you know what's in this book. I can't just say this is a biography or an autobiography. This isn't a how-to book. It's not about Ernie Grabotsky or Sally Johnson. It's none of those things. It's a thought book. That's what I write. And in order to convey what's in the book, you actually need time in the lead up to the release to do it properly. But there's been so much going on. People will say, well, you have mentioned it many times. I have, but I have not really got into the guts of it. And we're going to do that soon as things are tamped down a little bit. They may not be. And so this may just go on right through God knows when. If it is, it is. We're very flexible here. Unlike Qatarlson, I mean, I did call him the happy hooker of politics, didn't I, Mr. Producer? Without the happy. But anyway, I definitely want to get into this with you, aspects of the book, because it has such a profound impact on things that are going on today. And I want us to be able to influence those things, not just study them, not just talk about them, but to influence them. And in order to influence them, it's important to understand them. You've heard that line, ideas have consequences. More than that, ideas rule the day. Look what Marxism has done. Look what small r republicanism has done. Freedom. Freedom is more than an idea. Rights are more than ideas. How do we get them? What are they about? How do we protect the circle of liberty around each one of us? Liberty without rights is nothing. It's zero. It's an ambiguity. Rights without power don't exist. And so we're going to get into this, I hope, in a real and consequential way. But I want to encourage you, trust what I'm doing. I want to encourage you to pre-order your early copies, and it's coming out soon now, of On Power at Amazon.com. I think it's like $24. Most books are not $24. Most books are $30, but this one's $24. I impressed on Simon & Schuster, which was happy to do it, to price the book at a lower price, because I know what the economy is, people are struggling. And then on top of that, the retailers, right now Amazon, where you can pre-order, they will take a cut off the top of that too and reduce it even further. And as I've explained, the more people who pre-order, the better the discount. So if you're thinking about acquiring a book for a birthday down the road, or you're just thinking about acquiring the book because you want to read it, or you want to give it to somebody who you feel should read it, maybe one of the kids is going a little bit astray, or maybe you just want to gift it to your husband or wife or somebody like that, somebody who may want something to read in the latter half of the summer, any of these reasons. Or maybe because you're a great patriot. You're going to love this book, On Power. On Power, it's that simple. Here's the chapters. I haven't even done this. I don't know. I've got to get to it because I want to get to it. Chapter 1, On Power. No surprise there. Chapter 2, On Negative Power. Now you might say, I know what negative power. Chapter 3, On Positive Power. Do they ever overlap? What do they mean? Why does any of this matter? Chapter 4, On Language. Chapter 5, On Rights. Chapter 6, On Liberty. That's it. Big, big, big subjects. But here's the good news. I literally have to read hundreds of thousands of pages of original content, books, essays from philosophers, theoreticians, thinkers, scholars. Obviously, we're not interested in esoterica here. In other words, just to impress ourselves or me to impress myself. Not interested in that. We don't need to do that. But this builds a foundation for everything else. Our country was built on the shoulders of great thinkers in the past. Even biblical figures. That's very important to understand. Country didn't begin yesterday. That's Marx. It's also the isolationists who want you to forget about history, the successes as well as the failures in foreign policy. They have new ideas, which are not new. You'll come to learn that most ideas are not new. And that's okay. We're not looking for new. We're looking for what's correct, what's best for humanity. And so you're going to be able to look at this like you've never looked at it before. Those of you who've gone to high school and college, you're going to look at it in a way that's never been taught before, in ways I've never spoken before. Because I've determined that the key issue is not liberty. The key issue is not, or are not, rights. The key issue is power. This is a radical sort of formulation of what's taking place. Now, a goal might be liberty. Certainly a goal might be rights, unalienable rights, liberties like free speech and so forth. We all know about that. We all know about that. But without power exercised at the right hands, there is no liberty. There are no rights. And so what is it that we need to promote to ensure our liberty? What is it that we need to promote to ensure our rights? Even more. There could be an excess of liberty, right? There could be an excess of rights, depending how you define rights. And power in and of itself could be a good thing or a bad thing. And so we break that down. I break that down. We will do this together. In the positive context and the negative context, and in the overlay context, because sometimes positive and negative power overlay. I hope this interests you. I talk about people like Locke and Montesquieu, C.S. Lewis. Of course, Madison and Jefferson and Hamilton. A little bit of President Larry Arnn from the Hillsdale College is in there. Zuhdi Jasser, of course. The Bible, the Quran. Seem a little interesting yet? I talk about John Stuart Mill. Does he effectively define liberty? He wrote a whole book on liberty. It's the Bible of libertarians. How about Sam Adams' definition of liberty? Does that matter? How about Madison's definition of property? Does that matter? Oh, you're going to get it all. And it's fantastic. It flows. It's in a very tight, condensed book. So you don't have to be overwhelmed by any of it. I'm excited about it. I'm just trying to convey it so you're excited about it too. You can go to Amazon.com. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Man, where did this show go? Well, a little fun tomorrow night with, pardon me, Bannon. This is your life, or lack of it. But we'll have a lot of very, very important issues. We're right on top of it. And I want to thank you, the greatest of all audiences. Saturday night, of course, we were preempted with the battle in Iran. I did do Hannity from 9 to 11. Those were the two highest hours on the entire station. And he also crushed network broadcasting. In fact, Fox has been crushing network broadcasting. And it was a pleasure to be a part of that. Sunday night, Life, Liberty, and Levin was the highest-rated primetime show on Sunday evening. Would somebody tell Marjorie Taylor Greene? Maybe she would like to watch it. Maybe not. Folks, I'm blessed that you're there. Your loyalty means everything to me. You, my audience, I will never lead you astray. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourself.